I am Dr. Pavitra Bharadwaj. I am Associate Professor in the Department of Computer Science, Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi. So friends, this series is about web programming, and in this series we are going to talk about the different tools, techniques and concepts related to web programming or programming for the internet. So in the last lecture, in the preceding lecture, we had discussed about the basics of internet, the basic architecture of the internet, how the internet is organized in the layered architecture, and we had talked about how the exchange of data takes place. So we had seen that the basic protocol which is used for communication across devices on the internet is the TCP/IP protocol suite, right. Now when we know that the computers or the devices, actually when we are using the word computers or we are using the word devices in this discussion, it is synonymous to each other, right. So whether it is any device which is connecting to the internet, here we are using the term computer for it, right. So when we say that two computers are connected to the internet and they have to send message to each other, they have to communicate with each other, they have to exchange data amongst each other, right. So how does that happen? That is how the traffic is routed across the network, right. So say for example, if there is one computer, okay, so the computer has to transmit some data to another computer. Now computer will not connect directly to the internet, as we had seen that most computers will connect to an internet service provider router, the ISP router, right. So and actually what is the ISP router? An ISP router is the device with which we are building a small network, right. So likewise we will have a couple of local networks or smaller networks, and then all these networks together they connect to the internet backbone, right. So internet actually includes thousands of web servers, right, thousands of host servers which provide data and services as requested by the client. So like there can be billions of clients, so there are thousands of servers which are hosting the websites, which are hosting the data and which are giving services to the client. So basically the data will flow from the individual computer to the smaller network, to the ISP router, and from there it will go to the internet backbone, and from the internet backbone it will reach the web server which is going to provide the service for the client, and then it will follow the same route backwards, right. So when we are using the internet, when we want to use the internet, we have to request data from a host system, right, and this data that we are sending, the request as well as the data that we want to send, it is broken into packets, right. So this is the basic concept that we do in case of TCP/IP, that the data which is to be sent from one system to the other is divided into packets, right. Now what do we understand by packet? Packet means that you have some basic core data that you want to send. Besides this, there is some more information which is sent. Like if you want to send a letter to somebody, okay, if you want to post a letter to somebody, so the main letter is your data, okay, that you actually want to send, but that letter is put into an envelope, right, and on that envelope you will write the address of the receiver, you will write the address of the sender, you will write any other instruction like confidential or private and like this, right. So what is this? The envelope along with the letter is like a packet, okay. So now when the data is going to be sent, it is broken down into smaller pieces, and each piece is called as a packet, because besides the raw data, besides the core data, it is going to have some other information like the IP address of the computer which is sending the packet, the IP address of the computer which is going to receive the packet, right. Sometimes you need to make sure that the packet it reaches in a particular order, so you will also have a packet number, so that if the packets are reaching out of order, then the recipient can arrange them and get the correct data. Then there can be error correction bits or error checking bits which can be added. So likewise there can be multiple fields which can be added along with the data, multiple elements which are added along with the data. Now these packets that are prepared, the data is broken and the packets are made, and then these packets will travel across multiple networks, right, and then they will be reassembled at the destination, right. So I just said that the packets may reach out of order because they may follow different routes also. Not necessary that all the data packets which are going will reach the destination through the same route. They can go through the same route, they can go through different routes. So at the destination what will happen, the packets, because there is a packet number, so then the destination is going to rearrange the packets, it is going to assemble the packets, and then it is going to reconstruct the data which was sent to it, right. So these packets of information, they flow from one computer or one machine to the other, and for this two protocols are used. Now what are the rules? I just mentioned, the rules could be like what is going to be the size of the packet, that is each packet will contain how much data. Then what is the other information which needs to be sent, like sender IP or destination ID, what all information is going to be sent. So we say that internet, when you see the operation of the internet is a packet switching network. This is a very common term which is given to the internet, that it is a packet switching network. Why? Because of the same reason that each message or each data which is transmitted on the internet is decomposed into packets. Right. So along with the message there will be information about the machines which are sending the packet, the destination machine which is going to receive the packet, and how the packet is related to other packets, that is what is the order of the packets, right. And then these packets go and they are received by the destination, and as I just said, they can take up multiple routes and there they are reassembled, right. So if you look at this diagram, it makes it more clear that we have got this internet, okay. The cloud is actually representing the internet, and using the TCP IP standards or following the TCP IP protocols, the internet connects to the local network, right. So we have these computers which connect to the local network, and through the bridge or the router they connect to the main internet, right, and this internet connects them further to other hosts and the other servers. So if a computer has to send some data to another host, so it has to go from the local network, okay, then the local network will send it to the router of the service provider, and from the router of the service provider it goes to the internet, and there further it is passed on, and at the location or at the the source of the data is divided into packets. So at the local network also, when the data is flowing, it is flowing in the form of packets. So therefore we are saying that the packets will not flow in one network, it has to flow or it has to travel through multiple networks, and therefore because the packets are traveling through multiple networks, there is a likelihood that they may reach the destination at different times. So they need to be reassembled, they need to be reorganized, right. So basically when we say that two computers want to communicate with each other, like we are saying that the sender is sending a packet for the destination. Now in order to identify the sender or the source and the destination, definitely we need to have a mechanism of addressing, right. So every computer, or for that matter every device, will have a unique address, right. So this address or this unique identifier, which is actually a numeric identifier, is known as an IP address, or it is known as an internet protocol address, IP address or internet protocol address, right. So this basically, the internet protocol address is known as a tetrad because it has got 4 parts, right. and each part will be a number between 0 to 255, right. So a simple IP address would look something like this: 205.246.117.104. This is an example of an IP address, right. Now of course there is more to this that we can add, that is, these addresses, they will identify each computer, each device in, uniquely on the network, right. So if you connect to the network, or if you connect to the internet through a service provider, then you will be assigned a temporary IP address for the duration of your session. Okay, so if you have, one computer and there is internet, so both the computers, they have a unique identifier, okay, which is their IP address. Now this IP address can be a static IP address, or it can be dynamically assigned. Dynamically assigned means that when you connect to the router, it gives you an IP address, and when you disconnect the router, then the IP address is freed and it may be given to some other computer. So this keeps happening, and this depends, actually the details and nitty-gritties of how IP addresses are assigned depends upon the architecture of the network, okay, and how the device is connecting to the network, whether it is a wired network, whether it is a wireless network. So it depends on a number of factors, okay, and that of course is not a, within the scope of today's discussion, that how IP addresses are assigned, right. But at this juncture we need to understand that, whenever we connect a computer, we connect to the internet from say a local area network, right. So our computer can have two IP addresses in that case, because one will be the IP address of the local area network that has been given to us, okay, which we call as the permanent IP address, okay, and then it may also need a temporary IP address through which it is connecting to the internet, right. So if you want to know the IP address of your computer, there are many services online also which will help you. Otherwise, if you type ipconfig command in a Windows command prompt, you will be able to see the complete, IP configuration of your system. So the command is ipconfig for Windows, and for Linux and Mac, it is ifconfig. So these commands can help you know the complete classification, right. So so far we have seen that IP version 4 addresses were being used, so which were 32-bit addresses. Just we saw that the number can vary from 0 to 255. So that means it's a it's an 8-bit number. 0 to 255 means that 8-bit number can be used for IPv6. So total there will be 32 bits. But now we know that with the growing number of devices, and every hourly, every minute, more and more devices are being added to the internet. So there is a possibility that in very near future we will be running out of all the IP addresses. So there will be no IP address remaining, so that it can be given to a device uniquely. So for this, another mechanism of IP address has been created and devised, that is the IP version 6. Now in IP version 6 we will not have 32 bits, but we will have 128 bits IP address. So you can understand that 128-bit IP address is going to be an enormous size IP address, so that it can be used for billions of devices. Of course, a large portion of this will be reserved for scientific and research purposes, but another very big chunk will still be available for the users to take the IP address. So if you look at the settings, if you look at the network settings of your computer, you will be able to see that there is an option whether you want IP version 4 address or you want an IP version 6 address, that is a 128-bit address. So in 128-bit IP address you will have numbers as well as you will have alphabets, whereas in case of 32 bits it's a completely numeric ID that we are talking about, right. So now we know that we can identify individual machines and devices on the computers or the computers through their unique numbers or unique ID, numerical IDs which are given to them. But in addition to this, most of the computers, most of the internet hosts or servers, they also have a name, right. So basically what is the rationale between double identification? It's simple, because for human beings it is easier to remember names than to remember numbers. So if you are given a number for a computer, say you are given a number 10.132.1.1, okay, now it will take time for you to remember it, right. But if you know that there is a name for the computer, and say for example if I say www.xyz.com, so it is easier for you to remember the xyz.com than to remember the number. So this is the simple reason why the servers or the internet hosts, they are also given a name, a words, which uses words, and this system is known as the domain name system. So what is a domain name system? It is actually another way of identifying the internet hosts or servers, okay, so that it becomes convenient for the user, right. So now the domain name, basically it identifies, now domain names can be of several levels, right. So the first level domain name is actually used to identify the type of institution which owns the computer, right. So we will have several subdomains also which can be used, right. But initially for the beginning level, we need to know that there can be several types of domain name which will show you the type of organization to which it belongs, right. Say for example, very common domain name is .com domain. So this .com means the organization is for the domain name is for a commercial organization, it's for a business company. .edu means it's for an educational institution. .gov means that it's for the government. .mil means that the domain name belongs to the military, the US military basically. Okay, then .net means that the business or commercial activity related to networking. .org means that the domain name belongs to a not for profit organization, some society or some community, right. So likewise there can be multiple levels of domain names. So these are top level domain names. Further, it's also a detailed subject if we look at the domain name aspect. So in this we have the top level domain names, then we have a hierarchy of domain names, right. Like for example, we have .co.in. So co stands for company and in stands for the country name, that is in case of ours it's India, right. Like .ac.in. What is AC? AC stands for academic institution and IN stands for the country. So within the domain name also we can have sub-domain names. So basically the domain is, it's going to be used, it's going to be a way of identifying that the particular web internet host belongs to what kind of company, right. Or say for example, if you say www.du.ac.in. So because you see AC, you know that it's an academic institution, and because you see IN, you know that the host belongs to India, that is the academic institution belongs to the country India. So likewise, the domain name is going to help in classifying the different types of hosts which are available, right. Now, so we understand that how computers and devices can be identified on the internet, right. So there are two ways for that. One is using the unique numerical IDs, that is the IP addresses, and the other is the domain names, right. Besides this also, there are multiple features of the internet which are very commonly used, and they are, like, you can say these are the services which are provided by the internet, some of which are extremely popular and used on a day-to-day basis, like the World Wide Web. The others, they are used for specific purposes, like for file transfer, or for remote logging in. So we are going to look at some of the major services, some of the major features of the internet. The first here being the World Wide Web, right. So if we just go back and quickly take a recap of what internet means. So we have seen that internet is a network of networks. It is, it is based on client server architecture, and it is very powerful way of communicating with each other, which has got two types of machines. The server machines, which are considered to be more powerful, they have got more sophisticated software. The client machines, which have got less sophisticated software, or which are the common machines which are used, right. And basically the processing can be performed on both the ends. It can be performed on the server's end also and the client's end also. Basically, when we talk about web programming, we are going to look at programming for both the ends, how we can program for the client and how we can program for the server. And of course, the data is stored on the server, right. So data will be stored on the server. The processing of the data can happen either at the client or at the server, but the major chunk of processing in case of application servers will happen at the end of the server, okay, because the application server will be hosted at the server, right. So when we are talking about web programming, we will be talking about, we need to know that there are several technologies, like the hardware technologies, there are software technologies, okay, and at the same time we use a combination of technologies to program the web. So here when you are talking about the client side programming, then the more emphasis will be given on design, okay. Design means the visual appeal of the application, how the website or the web page is looking, how attractive it is looking. Then another very key aspect of web programming is that it has to be lightweight. Lightweight means that it will use very less power, it will use very less processing power, and it can be in terms of bytes of data also, it has to be very economical, because continuous transmission of data has to take place between the client and the server, and it will then the internet speed is going to affect the processing capability and the processing result and output of your application. So therefore all applications which are developed for the web, they are very lightweight application. Then another very important aspect of web programming is the security aspect, right, because the data which is being transmitted needs to be protected from any kind of unsolicited access, any kind of unauthorized access should be prevented. So security should be an inbuilt feature when you are programming for the web. When you are creating applications for the web, they need to be very secure. Then the management of the data is also very important, because if you look at applications of today, like these are enormous applications, like for example we are looking at social media applications, right. So there there are volumes of data, there are enormous volumes of data which are being generated. So managing, storing, protecting and accessing that huge volume of data in itself is a challenge. So therefore data management for web based applications is very important concern for the people who are working, and also the development time has to be very low, because we know that the shelf life of web based applications is very small, right. So we need to constantly keep updating and upgrading the application. So therefore you cannot take too long to develop these applications. So you need to be a quick developer if you want to work in this case of in this area of web programming. And basically the client and server side programming both need to be taken care of, because at the client side you will work on the design element, at the server side you will work on the processing element, and there is a constant interchange and exchange of data which is going to work on both these ends, right. So therefore there are multiple technologies which will be used in developing the applications. Like for client side application, there are three main technologies which are used. First is the HTML, of course, then we use the JavaScript or the VB script, which is for creating more responsive pages, and for styling your pages and to add a consistency to the design and the feel of the page, you use the style sheet or the CSS. And at the server side, we will use technologies like PHP, you can use Java server pages, ASP.NET, Cold Fusion, and there are multiple other technologies which can be used. So friends, this was an introduction about how the internet is organized and how the programming for the World Wide Web needs to be done. What are the basic key technologies which are used for programming the elements of the web, that is the client side element and the server side element. So in the following lectures we will be talking about more details of this. Till then, please keep watching CEC. Thank you.